Yeah, good morning, everyone. May I ask you to find a seat? Just 1 minute. Please find a seat. Right there are some seats left. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Um, just one couple of seconds. No problem. Okay, welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining this fantastic session. I will be your moderator for today and take you through the subject and also to the, of course, the timekeeping uh, uh, part of it. Um, I would love to welcome our panelists of today. It will be an interactive session introduced with panelists who present case studies. May I introduce Lisa Wee, Chief Sustainability Officer of Aviva. Welcome. Um, Secondly, Nicola Hakleitner, member of the management board of DHL. Welcome. Frits Scholte, senior vice president and head of global sales at Manpower Group. Welcome. And Robert Metzke, chief head of sustainability at Philips and host of this session. And on behalf of Philips. So let's thank Philips for this as well. And then for the interactive part, we have fire starters. I'll be one of the fire starters. We will divide this session into 3 groups. Sue Elchurch, she's in the back currently, Chief of Outreach and Engagements of UN Global Impact. Then the second fire starter, Andrew Bragg, next to her, Managing Director of Policy of We Mean Business Coalition. And Sandra van Rijswijk, CEO of Games for Health, who will, together with me, be the fire starter on the third group. And my name is Juriaan van Rijswijk. I'm founder of Games for Health, and today I'm proud and a little bit nervous to be your moderator. For setting the stage, I would love to ask Robert, could you help us just understand quickly how diverse this panel came to be and set the stage for us a little bit? And why are we here? And why is this important? An important topic to have on our radar as companies and as human beings.
Thanks so much, Jeroen. That are a big question. I'll try to be brief.
Yes, please.
So one of the things that joins or that combines all the 4 of us that we are here sitting on the panel, we represent companies that are part of the WEF CEO Climate Leaders Alliance. Now that's a big mouthful, but basically it's a group of around 130 companies today that are some of the biggest companies in the world. So if you sum up all the scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions from these companies, then it would be probably the 3rd biggest country in the world in terms of emission. So it's really a group that can do something about it and is doing something about it. If you look at the progress over the last years between, I think, in the last 3 years, the combined emissions across scope 1, 2, and 3 has been reduced with 10% from these companies, which is far ahead of what the many countries and nation states actually have achieved in the same time. So what does this to do with this panel? I already mentioned scope 3. So what, for the people that don't speak that language, scope 1 is basically what you do in your own house. Scope 2 is what you buy in terms of energy. And scope 3 is everything else, upstream and downstream. So it's super important to have a perspective on it, but it's also super difficult to tackle that. So we were talking amongst each other how important it is, but also how difficult it is to drive change. And the idea was to bring people together with totally different perspectives to say what's actually working and what's holding us back, and have a discussion about this. So I hope that answers the question.
I'm very visualized, and I would love to understand what the third largest country in the world is emitting CO2. Which country is that?
I wouldn't know.
Oh, I think okay. So we should look that up because I'm curious to learn, because then we can also imagine the size of the emissions. So thank you, Robert. These complex industries and technology-driven industries faced with significant carbon footprint, for global companies, tackling these calls for innovative business models and leveraging the value chain for good. Sustainable supply chains are pivotal in mitigating these climate impact and enhancing resilience. And if I mention supply chain, it's also value chain, more whatsoever.
Thanks.
India.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, India. Good. So it's big. So together with the panel and our fire starters, and of course you, we want to explore how we can scale and speed up scope 3 activities to drive sustainable transformation. This isn't just another discussion. We will present hands-on practical case studies and exchange valuable learnings and examples to move forward. And your ideas are very much welcome in this session. So please contribute in shaping a more sustainable future by driving impactful change. So what is the action? There's a lot of action. The first action is that I would ask you to get to know each other a little bit better, because you have to work together on the tables. So I came up with a question for you all. Shake hands with someone on the table you don't know and tell him or her what job as a small child you would love to become. Okay? So take a couple of minutes, shake hands. Yes. Please. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, we are very curious to learn. So now going to ask a couple of people what their neighbor wanted to be as a child. Robert.
Fritz just told me that he wanted to become a surgeon, which he didn't, obviously, but I think 2 of your children went into that profession, which is amazing.
You're living my dream.
Okay, just shout out loud. Who wants to share? Yes.
Makeup artist.
Makeup artist, wow. Over there. Someone. Sorry? Rockstar. A rock star, good. Sorry?
TV news anchor.
Ah, TV news anchor. Someone there? Sorry? Archaeologist.
There's another archaeologist here.
Well, it's a match. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bring this to the table, people, and get inspired by four case studies, which I will introduce right now. And after that, ask them super hard questions, okay? We're not here only for fun. It's a job we have to do and take care of. So, where are my cards? So I would like to ask Lisa first to introduce her case study as Chief Sustainability Officer at Aviva.
Thank you. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I'm probably representing the company you're least familiar with up on the stage. So just to share a little bit of background, we're an industrial software company. We work with more than 20,000 customers across very diverse sectors, everything from engineering, chemicals, manufacturing. And we provide solutions that help to engineer, operate, and optimize those companies so they can focus on what they do best, from providing vaccines and goods and other services. So, in terms of case study, first of all, we really believe that you need to lead by example on sustainability and these topics. So for us, being a software company, we've clearly moved very quickly on scope 1, scope 2, but scope 3, what you immediately find out once you do this is that you cannot do it alone. So I think, for us, what has been key to making progress is understanding the collaboration opportunities that are out there and where there are challenges that are shared across businesses. So, for example, travel. A lot of us have a travel challenge that, as we've made ambitious net zero commitments, we need to meet. And for us, we're also part of the First Movers Coalition. So we've made ambitious commitments, and then we work with others, including SABA, the Sustainable Aviation Buyers Alliance, to meet those commitments. Then there's been other areas where, especially on downstream value chain, there's been less initiatives and more white space, and we think we have more of an expertise to lend. And there, for example, we've really worked with the Green Software Foundation to help define what even is a standard for green software, because that didn't used to exist. So that's been, really important as part of success about moving more quickly is finding those collaboration opportunities, but really also understanding your expertise and where you can lead versus where maybe you're part of a supporting group but following. And I think, again, for us, what we've also really seen as a second pillar here that I have to mention is digital. How do you really use technology to scale? And we think about that in terms of our impact. Because the biggest impact that we can have as a technology company, especially one that works as in the industry, is helping the industrial sector reduce their emissions. And there, I think, just to give an example, because I know everybody is extremely excited about AI, and it does provide very real opportunities, but it is a journey. And with the companies that we've worked on, our data suggests that only about 30% of industrial companies have digitalized well at scale. So that means those are the ones that are then able to take advantage of AI to turbocharge the progress. Just as one case study example, I'll talk about Michelin. Making a tire maybe not sound very complicated. It's a 400-step process that involves 200 materials. They've been using real-time data for over 10 years now to, first of all, understand across all of their manufacturing plants how to have standardized data around energy and water management so that they can reduce that by over 10%. Now they're running AI and analytics over the top of that. But as we've said, leadership looks different now. It's not just about what you do at your own sites, it's about the entire value chain. And we've got regulation that's come in around digital passports, that's come in around carbon. So that is the foundation that they are now using to really look at embodied carbon as well. And working, again, having a shared data that they can then link out and exchange across the value chain. So I think that, again, is going to be really key to driving more progress.
Cool. And is a CO2 emission part of your software optimization?
So again, what we really look at is how do you have your operational KPIs right next to your environmental KPIs. Yeah. So very often it's going to be around energy management. Okay. That really you can focus on an action. And actually we think there's huge value to be able to compare those two things within one view and one software.
Cool. Thanks. Second panelist, Nicola, a member of the management board of DHL. Could you share your case study with us, please?
Thank you very much. So I brought a few notes, not because I don't know what I'm talking about, but to limit myself to 5 minutes, there's absolutely no other way than to structure myself a little bit. So DHL Group, we have 600,000 people, and for us, Scope 3 is 75% of our emissions. So that's outsourced air, ocean, and road. And I don't want to talk about the whole business, so I'm focusing on the business I'm running, which is Post and Parcel in Germany. And I just wanted to give you some details, some facts, so you know how big the task is that we're actually working on. And because as a logistics provider, by definition, we emit a lot of emissions, we started very, very early with our journey. So not just the last 2-3 years, we have been going at this for over 10 years now. So in Germany, I have 190,000 employees, so 190,000 people work for us, and of which 115 are actually out every day on our delivery route, so what we call last mile. And we have to actually produce all the parcels and the letters. We have 82 letter mail sorting centers and 40 parcel sending sorters. And why is this important? Because they are all connected. So every night, every parcel center sends a truck basically to all the other 39. So you can imagine how many trucks we have on the road every night. And that is actually scope 3 for us, because that is outsourced. Of course, what we control, we also did a lot already before. We actually, when we started our journey, we looked around which are the e-delivery vehicles we could use. And we went to all the car manufacturers and said, we need, I mean, given that we have 115,000 delivery people, we need a lot of e-cars or e-trucks. And none of the car manufacturers at that time was willing actually to go into business with us and produce e-vehicles for us. So we did a cooperation with the university in Aachen in Germany, and we created our own e-delivery truck. Those of you who live in Germany know the street scooters, the yellow cars on the road. So that was our very first stop or step actually into that journey, and many, many more have followed. But that for us is controlled by ourselves. It's not outsourced. So scope 3 is for us in Germany mostly the transport companies. And all those trips between the centers that I just mentioned before is done by outsourced companies. So we thought, how can we actually incentivize them in a very fragmented market? There are a few very large transport companies, but most of the transport companies have 40, 50 trucks, and they say, we can't afford that, we cannot do that, and we don't know which technology we are going to bet on, because there are many different technologies, and in Germany, it's not 100% clear yet which one is the one of the future. So what we did is we actually decided which one is the bridging technology we are going to bet on, and we bet on CNG. So we have 450 CNG trucks on our own, but that's not enough. So we worked with the transport companies who cannot afford it, and we have in Germany a very, let's say, non-sufficient network of fueling stations for CNG actually. So we worked with the transport companies. Normally, that's a business practice. You make a 1-year contract with the transport company. So of course they said, we're not going to invest in any new technology for a year. So we committed ourselves to much longer contracts now with our transport companies. We help them in terms of financing, how they can afford to actually switch to new technologies. But we also allow them to fuel at our own gas stations, because for a long time we always said, we can't actually invest in CNG because there's not enough infrastructure. Well, at some point we said we have to go ahead now, and we invested in our own infrastructure. So that's on the CNG side, but we also did the same on the electric trucks. So we are also working with some transport companies to invest in electric trucks. There we have the same issue again, the charging. And here it's not just the availability, it's really the grid in Germany. I mean, we have our parcel centers mostly in logistics parks, and sometimes because so many companies charge the e-vehicles, the light goes out in these logistics parks, and for us, and our not sorting in our parcel centers is simply not an option. So we're also working very closely with the politicians that are in charge of infrastructure to actually support us to elevate the grid, because otherwise that journey cannot continue like that. So that's what we're doing on the transport side, but we are not just a big emitter of scope 3 emissions, but we are normally also the biggest scope 3 emitter for our customers. So we are working a lot, and as Lisa said, you can't do it alone. So we're collaborating very closely with our customers by offering them Go Green Plus products. So that means it's not compensating, it's really avoiding together. So we look at their specific supply chains, then we say on these routes we can put CNG, we can put e-trucks and so on. And then they invest basically in our business to get greener so that they can then claim those reduction in their own CO2 balance.
Fantastic.
So that is taking off now. It of course costs and not every customer is willing, but I think we are making good traction here too.
Well, impressive. Thank you very much. It sounds for me as a country as well, DHL. So I don't know which size of a country, but it's big. Thank you very much. Robert, could you please share your case that you brought for us?
With pleasure. I know, Nicola, you are sometimes being criticized for the planes that are flying around. So at the risk of turning this into the anonymous emitters circle here, you think you know Philips, but Philips has been changing a lot over the last decade, actually. I joined Philips 17 years ago when it was still a very scattered, let's say, conglomerate of more than 40 different businesses. We focus today very much on health technology around the world. And the healthcare sector is emitting more CO2 than all airlines together. So just to not to compete on how bad we are, but
it's another big country.
It's interesting that in the healthcare system you really miss these feedback loops. There's so much focus on patient outcomes that costs have been continuously rising across the world on healthcare systems in those countries that do have healthcare, while half of mankind doesn't even have access to healthcare. 4 billion people never ever see a doctor in their lives, right? And the other half is emitting more CO2 than all airlines together. So talking about materiality and our value chains also. We started, one of my first assignments 17 years ago was, that was just briefly after Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, to reduce operational emissions with 25% in 5 years' time. Doing that, we really looked very deeply into understanding our own carbon economics. So we made these carbon abatement curves to really understand what it takes and where to invest and how to prioritize, building traction also with the CFO and finance communities and new investors. So we were able to deliver on that based on these learnings. We committed to net zero operations in 2020. And along the way, when the Paris Agreement was signed, we also we did that, and then we were one of the first companies to sign up for science-based targets for Scope 1, 2, and 3. And the homework that we did in our own company allowed us to engage, as you are describing, Nicola, also with our own supply chain going upstream. So a couple of years back, we said, well, by 2025, wouldn't it be cool if 15,000 of the half of our 15,000 bill of material suppliers also subscribe to science-based targets? Now, the good news is today is January 22nd something of 2025. So by the end of this year, we want to have 25 or 50% of our supply chain on science-based targets. It's now 46%. And that happens because very similar, so great to compare notes also, we are able to help them with practical examples from our own operations. We help them with financing, we help them with renewable energy sourcing, a lot of things. So it's really about capability building also. The even bigger part is the downstream part of the value chain. It's the hospitals. So happy to share more, but from the case study perspective, one of the things that we did along the way is really thinking about our innovation roadmaps and saying, okay, what does it mean, science-based targets for Scope 3? What does it mean for the next generation of MR scanners that will be in the market in 5 to 7 years from now? So what does a product engineer need to know about energy efficient of such an equipment in a given market with all the technological changes that are happening to be able to reduce total emissions of Philips of the installed base in all the hospitals around the world to not exceed emissions that would not be compatible with the Paris Agreement. So that's quite a task in being very granular. Based on that, we have a very competitive energy efficient fleet of imaging equipment, which is nice. It opens the door because that's where a lot of hospitals are. They want to operate carbon neutral. They don't want to harm planet Earth while helping the patient. So the discussion about energy efficiency is often a door opener. If you think a large hospital like Charité in Berlin, I don't know, they have an energy bill of 100 million a year or something. So it is a topic, a very operational, practical topic. The interesting thing, of course, is you can come in and say, okay, but we can also help you dematerialize or decarbonize the material that you buy from us, for instance, through circular business models or by delivering imaging as a service and these kinds of things, which is more challenging. But the real impact comes from working together with clinics and hospitals to help rethink how care is delivered. So, for instance, avoiding double scans by increasing precision or diagnostic insights. Understanding how patients are potentially deteriorating so that you can intervene. So if somebody has a badge on his chest and you can monitor, even if he's left the hospital, you pick up signs that over 3 days from now his condition might become worse and you ask them to come back, you can avoid complications, which are bad for the health, bad for the finances, but also have a huge impact on the environmental side. But I'm sketching that very deliberately, these 3 steps, because it requires also different levels of maturity from the customers to understand and engage on these topics. So energy efficiency is a good opening point. I think supply chain circular models are more complex but more impactful. But the real interesting stuff is if you align the core business with the desired environmental outcomes. Let me stop here.
Thank you very much. Let's give a hand of applause to the panelists.
You're forgetting
One
me.
more.
Sorry.
Story of my life.
We'll help
Now
you.
finally on stage, and then they forget me.
This was because last night, but it's my mistake, of course. We changed the order of the panelists. Fritz, I'm sorry. Would you share? And I wanted to add why, because there's a lot of discussion or information right now at supply chain, but we would love to call it value chain, and that's the reason you were placed at not the last, but not the least, but the last.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. I work at Manpower Group, and as many of you maybe know, what we do at Manpower Group is we connect companies to skilled talent. And skilled talent is, as you know, a scarce resource these days. Now, listening to all the stories, whether it be software, logistics, or medical technology, they have one thing in common, and they all need people to make it happen. And not just people, it's actually the right skills. So allow me to take a more people-centric approach, where we think that the whole transition is actually all about green skills. There is a nice example, there's many examples. One nice business case is about Muebe, that's the old Cepsa company, the 4th largest energy company in Spain. They are transitioning from a traditional fossil company towards more hydrogen and biofuel. That's a huge technical transformation, as you can imagine. But the most difficult piece was actually, do we know what skills we need to make that transition happen? Do we have those skills? What kind of upskilling, reskilling do we need? And what are the new roles that we need? So what we did, we've built a complete new skills architecture with them, so taxonomy. And next to that, academies to make sure that we are able to upskill and reskill their people, but also onboard new people to actually make the transition happen. Now, you might think that's all technology, but you would be surprised that maybe the biggest transition in people skills are made in marketing or sales. Because it's quite a difference to sell petrol to a petrol station compared to selling hydrogen, which is a very complex chain of selling. Now, this is a real green company, so you will. So you might think, well, this is all about real green jobs, but the biggest impact is what we call the greening jobs, because every single company has a transition to make to reduce their emissions. So in every company, whether it be a traditional company, things have to change, whether it's behavior or different things, different tasks, and every different task comes with different skills. So we absolutely believe that really mapping the skills for the future state, building academies to make it happen, is absolutely important. Because if you don't bring your people along, it will absolutely not happen. And we are a believer that people do want to, because 60% of Gen Z, they want to be connected to employers that at least make a promise towards the green transition. So they need to see what's happening, because just a promise is not what makes things happen. So I think today here also in SDG 10, we have a collective responsibility to go from pledges into actions. And well, let me take the role of helping all of you building that skills taxonomy and really creating that big pool of people that will make the transition happen. Because again, when people are there, it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Frits, I have a question to add to your showcase. Do you also include in talking to formal education, like primary education, high schools, and university, or is it just your the trainings you do as Manpower?
Well, what we now do is really company specific because every company has its own specific changes they have to make.
Yeah.
But of course, the formal educational system, they at some point have to start including elements that are related to green as well.
Yeah.
The issue we now have is that when you start looking for people that have experience in the green transition, they're not to be found because they're not there.
No.
So that's on the degree part. The same thing. So but that's always a bit slower.
Yep.
And I don't think we have the time to wait for these institutions. So make it practical because don't make it bigger because sometimes the changes are so small that it takes only a small effort.
Yep.
But that effort still needs to be taken because also small efforts need to be taken. So company-specific programs are, to my opinion, the most fastest way forward.
Yeah. Thank you. So talking about speed and scale to reduce scope 3 CO2 emissions, we have challenges. So the next part of this session will be the chaos part, the dynamic interactive part, as you will. So we want to collect from you what challenges do you think are the biggest that lies ahead to scale up and speed up CO2 reduction emissions for scope 3. So we are going to do that with a Mentimeter. So I'll give you a couple of, not a couple of seconds to open the Mentimeter. If you have troubles opening the Mentimeter, there you go to the website, which is menti.com, menti.com, and you type in the code that is on top. If you have trouble scanning the QR codes, sorry, are you good? No, back a little bit. One. Are we all good?
No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? So, this is the question. Submit one word that captures what you think is the biggest challenge to scope 3 emissions reduction and path towards net zero. So, please take a minute of your time to think about the word or the words you would like to submit that is the biggest challenge to scope 3 CO2 reduction. And remember, speed and scalability is what we need. Transparency, accountability, collaboration. It's about the obstacle, people. The challenge, accountability, transparency, skills, leadership, complexity. And we will take the 3 words and we will divide this room into 3 groups. The first 3 tables here take 1 word. Then we have 3 tables over there and 3 tables over there. And the fire starters will give you the assignment to work on that word and give us starting point solutions to beat scope 3 challenges. So we will take how much more time for collecting the words? Are we good? Yeah. Yes? So let's, Robert and Melissa, Robert, can you do a live analysis on the word cloud you see?
Well, I think the interesting thing is how to lump them together, right? Not just take the biggest one. So there's clearly something around data, which goes into accountability also and transparency. I think that's probably one of the themes. There's something around collaboration and skills, I think.
Leadership, maybe?
Leadership, yeah, exactly. I like that. And then there's probably something around
How can
financing,
accountability?
yeah, exactly. But more on the financing, traceability, accountability kind of things. Did we have that? That's the data part. So we have skills, leadership, data accountability, and I think finance is probably another topic that is not yet overlapping too much with the other ones.
Okay. So I have data and accountability. I have collaboration, skills, and leadership, and I have finance. So the 3 tables over there with the fire starter that's standing next to Annette and to Andrew. Will you pick that? So Andrew will be your guy for finance, and please come up with starting point solutions to beat Scope 3 challenges on the challenge finance. Then over here we will do collaboration, skills, and leadership. We will do that over there. And please, Sue, can you? Where are you? Oh, okay. Sue is over there. So Sue will be the fire starter for the collaboration, skills, and leadership. So come up with starting point solutions to beat Scope 3 challenges for that. And here we will have data and accountability. And Sandra and I will be your fire starters for data and accountability. Please work together as a table and hand the fire starters after 20 minutes a set of starting point solutions that we can share with the panelists and elaborate deeper on to beat Scope 3 emissions.
And Jurian, as you asked me to chop this wooden or this knot into 3 pieces,
Yeah.
May I add? I could also
Sorry,
suggest.
1 second, please. Yeah.
I just want to say these topics are, of course, interconnected, right? It's an arbitrary cut here. So please feel free to also think about what you need from the other tables or from the other topics to be effective. So I can imagine if you talk about finance, you may want to articulate what you need from leadership or accountability and data as a request so that we can stitch it together in the end. Yeah,
Yeah, and
Makes
please
sense?
also ask the panelists. They will walk around and add to the groups. Thank you. If the panelists could return to their seats, please. I'm missing one. Fritz. No, sorry. It's so horrible. Yeah, Fritz. Hi, Fritz. Nice meeting you. Sorry hoor. Maar ik had deze volgorde.
Ja, je dacht, dat is het klaar. We zijn aan het einde.
Okay. It's a tough cookie. So now it's the job. The hardest job is on the fire starters to sum this up. So ladies first, Sue. You had the tables of skills, collaboration and leadership.
Yeah.
And you had a vibrant discussion, and we would like to hear your takeaway on the starting point solutions to beat Scope 3 challenges.
Great. I must say that with these fires going on in
Can we
Los
have their
Angeles-
attention, please?
I must say
Thank
that with
you.
the fires going on in Los Angeles, being a fire starter doesn't sound like a great thing.
Sorry.
And climate change is making it worse, but still. Yeah, so we had skills, leadership, collaboration, and of course they do all come together. But I'm going to tackle each one because that's a little bit how we did it in our teams, and also they roll one into the other. So I start with collaboration because it's recognized that there isn't enough of that, but that's absolutely fundamental. And then skills and leadership can help us do that. So we need the outcome of better collaboration. And there's a thought that how we need to better communicate that this will not be solved simply overnight. and we will make mistakes. And everyone needs to collaborate. The media, the NGOs, the companies, the staff, the leadership, everyone needs to be on board, because otherwise we're going to stop the progress where there is progress being made. So that's a big collaboration challenge, but I think we need to try and do that. We need to be able to work right across systems with SMEs, all size companies, with NGOs, with media, everybody, with governments. And we can't be pointing fingers at each other. We have to work collaboratively and find a way to solve that one. And one of the ways to do that is to give all of these people the right skills. So education, we should be thinking in our schools from day one, in our business schools immediately. So sustainability training to all staff, for the coders, for the engineers, for the people in the plants, for the marketing, for the sales. If everybody is on board and we're educating everyone, for the media, for the everybody, we're more likely to be able to see people come together in a collaborative approach. Almost like there shouldn't be a sustainability function. It should be everybody's business, and everyone should be trained up on it. And then also understanding that we need to be educating people all across that whole value chain, SMEs, everybody collaboratively. Otherwise, we'll never get to the collaboration. And then, of course, the big enabler is leadership. And this is obviously the biggest thing. The CEO challenge is today really broad. That's why greenwashing is happening, because there's all this challenge. Obviously, CEOs are reporting to the markets, and there's a lot of push just for numbers and profit, which is obviously right. But most businesses are born to have a role in society, for jobs, for growth, for everything. So leadership is a big issue. So coming back to the education, it would be great if we could build more courage, humility to collaborate into the system with leaders and financial leaders as well. Can they encourage this collaborative approach where systems are working together based on values, based on a role that a business has in society for its people, for its communities, for everyone, as well as delivering a profit. So values seem to be really, really strong, and how do you train that? But that we definitely need to think how to educate that. Then obviously the more tangible things like change management, because everybody should be trained that this is a change management approach and it's not just little things to do. And leadership should be trained up in collaboration, how to collaborate, and leaders on the media, of finance, everybody being trained up in this way. Yeah, so I mean, I think that was the main one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. Perfect. We will summarize this all and send it out to you back later. Andrew, can you summarize it? There's a mic here for you, if you wish. Oh, yeah, you can take another one as well. So you had finance.
Yes. You say, can I summarize? Probably the answer is no, but I'll do my best. So yeah, we had the finance issue, which of course a very broad set of sort of sub-issues within that, and very different across different sectors and different supply chains. So we had a lot of fires burning, and it was great to try to sort of navigate between those. But I would say, very broadly, three kind of areas which came out from it. One is really getting towards a better kind of true pricing model right from products that then trickles up the chain. So really pushing to change the kind of VAT tax model to be better allocating prices in products, and then the regulations that encourage better clarity through the supply chain, such as what can be done better with CSRD, and just within that pushing in the kind of business school education, how do we get more training around holistic business models, so the whole supply chain liabilities are already thought of as a hardcore bottom line business case, so that then frees up financing for supply chain actions. So that kind of whole basket of issues around pricing. The second one I thought was interesting was, I would summarize it kind of around partnering. So there was some discussion around actual big corporates partnering on how to be allocating finance for smaller suppliers to avoid the smaller SME suppliers having different demands coming from many different purchases. And then another form of partnering around innovation. So trying to find solutions for sort of corporate startups, partnerships where the innovative technological solutions, kind of first of a kind, pre-revenue solutions that are out there, that corporates can be involved in financing of those through the supply chains. And then the third area around how to just drive allocation of funding capital into actual financing actions within suppliers. So how to get that kind of commitment for that spend at the board level, where the pressure comes from that investor pressure, just to better improve that allocation sort of away from marketing towards actually financing to suppliers. So those are the kind of three buckets that I tried to summarize from many different discussions going on. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I was fire starter of myself, but I got a lot of supports from Sandra, and from you, and from Robert. So I'm trying to summarize it. We had the data and accountability tables. So I have 3 cards that actually summarizes the discussion on the table and the starting point for action. One I like a lot is, again, education and inspiration for customers and suppliers. So make consumers demand the data big players can incentivize in the data collection. So if your customers are asking for data, you have to collect it. So I like that a lot. And then solutions with token and AI technology integration for data hygiene, etc., was actually a plan already. Another table had summarized it in, and I liked it a lot as well, is don't start waiting for the perfect data to get started. Get started and engage with your value chain and ask getting your value chain to take actions and what actions they take to advance sustainability. And then the third table, and Cameron, maybe you can help me out with one sentence because I can't read it. Nature and climate are 2 sides of the same coin. And actions is incentives, fundamentally how companies better off having and applying this data. So incentivize these organizations. And then you should help me out, please. I'll bring the mic to you because I can't read the last sentence on that.
Sorry, I have terrible handwriting. So I think the other things we discussed were around the transparency side of things. How can we have greater transparency in supply chains, and what does that drive in terms of action? And I think there are some questions. You could have things going both ways, but I think the general consensus is that more transparency is generally good and tends to drive positive action. Perhaps you'll have lots of ups and downs in the meantime, but that would be the general trend.
Thank you very much. The data and accountability tables. Now I would ask the panelists to reflect on the harvest we get from this, from your contributions. But before that, I want to ask you, there are these cards on the table. And for the last 10 minutes we have left, there's a question stated, after today's session, what ideas are you going to implement in your organization tomorrow? Think about it, write them down, put your name there, and then we're going to exchange these ideas where we can keep you accountable for next year, because you will be here next year as well. We collect them all, share them with you to stimulate and to incentivize you all in the actions we all need to take. Panelists, is there someone who wants to reflect first on what we have, the beautiful harvest we gain from this crowd?
No, maybe I can start. I mean, I was sitting at the table where we discussed finance, and when you work in the corporate world, you always look at yourself. As somebody said, you look at the market, your customers, and so on. But you sometimes forget there are so many players in that area where collaboration really would bring you even further forward. So the collaboration, the creative ideas around finance, And just how everybody from a different angle can play a role in it for me was very eye-opening again, because sometimes we're so in our own world that you forget how many other sources there are to tap into and how much impact you can create also that way.
Yeah. So maybe also the distribution of all the solutions is an issue we need to think about.
Yeah, and also of the knowledge, because that comes into the skills.
Yeah.
We know how to run corporate, not so much how to do sustainability topics of the future. And I think rather than inventing it ourselves, so much knowledge to tap into. Was a good reminder again.
And we should maybe educate our children.
Well, absolutely. I think one of the sources to elaborate on that is also your own people. We have massive amount of people working for our companies, and you might be amazed how many good ideas they might have to help us with the transition we need to make. And don't shy away, and that actually came from that table. Don't shy away from incentives, because small steps should be recognized as well and incentivized. So don't shy away to incentivize good behavior. That actually helps all of us, because then people see it's actually rewarding to work together on what we all need, and that's the reduction.
Cool.
So maybe just building, our table was talking about don't wait to start
now.
engaging, start now. I think one observation building on this that we found that sounds very basic, but there's actually a lot of resources now to help you engage. What we've found is that people sometimes don't think about who is making the ask, and that personal relationships still really, really matter. So sometimes it's really thinking about who knows that customer, who knows that supplier, and leveraging the personal connection that they have to get past maybe the initial objections or fears, or to understand. And
So
that,
subsurface.
just coming back to people and the human connection being really important to drive change, because change is hard.
Yeah, building on that. Thanks, Lisa. I think also somebody said earlier this week, change is moving at the speed of trust. So I think that is super important also in supply chain. So we cannot outsource everything to technology platforms, right? So picking up the phone, speaking to people, connecting. And that's actually what leaves me very inspired, I must say. I heard a lot of talk about scope 3 is so hard, we cannot do anything, and let's focus on our own operations, whatever. I mean, if I'm listening to these conversations, to the feedback from the tables, from the discussions that we had, there's a lot happening and there's a lot possible, and that's really encouraging, especially if we team up and exchange these best practices and dare others to ask what it takes to scale and to kick up the speed, so to say. I think then we really can drive change. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Have you all written down your card? And then I would ask you to take a beautiful picture of it and hand the card over to someone else, to your card, and take a picture of that card. So take a picture of your card, what you have written down. Give your card to someone else. Don't forget to put your name on it. Because next year, you will all be here with a list. Yeah, we will invite you all back. So hand your card over to someone else. Take a picture of the card you got from someone else.
Trust building in action.
Trust building in actions. Can you repeat that sentence, Robert? Change
happens at the speed of trust.
Change happens at the speed of trust. Okay. Are we all good? Who still needs some time? Yeah, are we good? Well, then I would like to thank you all to this session. For me, it was a challenge because I'm not an expert in this domain, but I love to moderate and love to see change happening, because that is what I'm into with Games for Health, making games to support people to provide them with the availability to adapt in different behavior. So I liked it a lot. Thank you, Sue and Andrew, as fire starters, and Sandra. Thank you very much for being this difficult role. And thank you, Lisa, Nicole, Fritz, and of course, Robert. And maybe you have some closing words, and then I would love to wrap up. Are you good?
I just want to thank you, Jurian, and everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for making this count. There's a lot of ideas. Take them out. Don't forget to ask people. Other people might have even better ideas to help you get kick-started. And let's make that count. Scope 3 is super important, and we can do something about it.
And leave your cards on the table. We collect them and summarize them for you all. Thank you very much.